So I'll
Recording
just
in
summarize it
progress.
because it's quite a bit of text, right? One of the girls, you can see her prelims, she was getting 29 points. And then for her actual O levels, 1 month later, she got 16 points. Her math, she was failing since Sec 1. She was getting F9 all the way. And then she finally got C5 for her O levels. This other girl, same class also, her goal was to get into ACJC together with her best friend. Any parent over here, you know what is the cutoff point for ACJC science stream? It's almost always the same point. Anyone wants to guess? ACJC science stream. And you can type in the chat. Every time I ask to type in the chat, I'll take a sip of water as well. 12 points. 9 points. It's usually about 7 or 8 points, okay? If they haven't really changed it much, it's usually 7 or 8 points for ACJC science stream. But as you can see, she was averaging like 29 points, 30 points together with her best friend. And he felt it was impossible. ACJC was just a dream school. Now they're getting 30 points. There's no way they can get into like science stream, right? But 1 month later, they actually got into their dream JC, her as well as her best friend. So the main thing why I'm sharing this with you is because the girls in this class, it's not that they're not capable. They're very much capable. They had it in them. The question is, why did they feel and why did they think that they were not capable of achieving the results that they want, whether it be to go to their dream poly course or to their dream JC? Because a lot of times when they face setbacks, they go through challenges, they go through difficult situations, and they don't focus or address on the things that matter, they might stay stagnant. Or sometimes they might start to spiral down. But if they are able to be self-aware, they're able to work on the right things, and they're able to like focus on what I need to do at this point in time in order to improve, then when they get the results right, they will start to build their momentum. And that's when they start to get better. So what exactly do they need to focus on? This is the first part, and I'm going to get right into it right now. Is a lot of times, even we as adults, we might have gone through certain situations, we might have gone through certain challenges in our life, and we sort of let that narrative define us. And sometimes, as parents, you may have gone through certain upbringing with your own parents, and then you may say to yourself or say to your child, like, hey, I went through maybe a bit of childhood trauma, or I didn't agree or I agreed with the way my parents raised me. But now that I have my own child, I'm a parent myself, I want to do things different. So that is some parents wanting to change the narrative. But what about the teenagers themselves? If they start to know how they can be in control of their lives and change their situation, their whole story could be really different as well. So what do they need to focus on? Or what can you as a parent get them, encourage them to focus on? There are four main things. The first one is really their thoughts and their beliefs. And for this, parents, you play a huge, huge, huge role in how you define this in your child, because their value system, their belief system is nurtured at home. It always begins at home. There are some parents that I've spoken to before who always say, oh, it's the responsibility, it's the job of the school, of teachers to raise my child or to make sure they grow into become a better person. But actually, all the values, all the belief system that they form, right, starts at home. And if the value system is not cultivated or nurtured right, then they might already have this very limiting thought that, like, hey, I believe the world is like this. I believe I'm like this because my parents say so, because it's like this at home. So the one thing that students sometimes face, right, is they have a lot of limiting beliefs that hold them back. And where all these limiting beliefs are formed is through their experiences, through their exposure, through the people they interact with, or through the things that they feed themselves by. Last time, it used to be from their parents when they were much younger. As they grow up, it can be influenced from their friends. But right now, the biggest challenge that most parents are facing is no longer just influence from parents, no longer just influence from their friends. Do you know where they are also getting their influence that shapes their beliefs or even their value system? Anyone wants to type in the chat? I'm sure all parents know this lah. So anyone wants to guess where they get their, yes, correct, social media, okay? Because now there are a lot of comparisons going on. Last time is you go Hari Raya, you go Chinese New Year, right? Then one thing that students and youths hate, right, is the constant comparison. But right now, when they go on social media, even if they're just like randomly doom scrolling, they're constantly comparing themselves and their lives with people that they see online. And they start to form all these like unhealthy thoughts or unhealthy beliefs. So this is the first one, because what they think, right, actually starts to shape their identity and start to shape their reality. But the second one is how their thoughts and beliefs affects them is after thinking a certain way, after believing certain things, they start to feel a certain way. So for example, social media, right? Like most of you type Joyce, SW, as well as NG. If they look at someone on social media who is scoring well, and they're like, wow, I studied so hard, and I'm still not getting my grades that I'm working towards, then they start to feel lousy because like someone else, they seem to do well, they seem to be popular, they seem to get all the validation on social media, and they start to feel lousy about themselves. And they start to think again, like, what's the point of working so hard? Like, I don't think I can do it at all. So if they start to spiral down, right, thinking, feeling that way, then the next thing is going to be this, okay? Because if they don't understand their emotions, it will affect the way they perceive the world. And a lot of times, one of the biggest things that youths face, which they always share, and I like to share with parents over here, is they say when they go through certain struggles or challenging situations, they won't want to tell their parents because they always say, my parents don't understand me. My parents will always lecture me. My parents will always tell me what they think is best for me, but they don't actually understand what I'm going through. They don't understand what I'm feeling. So later in the second part, I'll share with parents over here what are some ways, right? You can perhaps start to change also to connect better with your teenager. Because again, they grow up in a very different generation. They always seek connections, validation, perhaps online, but in real life, at home, they need this safety. They need this support from you because their emotions, especially as teenagers, will define how they view the world and even like form a certain identity of theirs. So after understanding how they feel, the next part is really what are the actions that they are taking or not taking. Because this is where habits come in. And this is where later I'll share, right? Like what are some of the things they have to realize first, and they have to start to change in order to get a different outcome. Because if they keep doing things a certain way, right, they are always going to get a certain result. And this forms a loop. So it all starts with their thoughts and beliefs first, because I'll give you two examples. First example is a student who perhaps in PSLE, they do well. And then what happens is they feel good because when they got their results, they were happy, you celebrated with them, you praised them, you encouraged them. And then they like, okay, I'm going to secondary school now. I want to build that momentum. I want to continue doing well. And if they get the results in their first term, they've been doing well, they start to feel better about themselves and they want to maintain that. So it's a positive cycle. However, if same student got their PSLE results, they got into a different school, new environment, new academic challenges, and they said like, okay, it's a fresh start. And then they feel optimistic, they feel hopeful. And they did study hard, they did study well. But when they got their results for the first term, they realized they borderline passed and all that. Then they start to feel and think a certain way. It's like, hey, am I not as good? Are my classmates doing better? And if they don't take the right actions, right, and they just keep repeating what they've been doing without realizing there are certain things they need to change, there are certain things they need to fix, then they're just going to go in a constant loop. They're just going to go in a constant cycle. And the worst part is if they start to spiral down instead of leveling themselves up. So the biggest thing that we need to realize, right, is for all these things, in order for change to happen, the first step is really their self-awareness. And parents, this is where you come in because you really need to understand like what are their belief system? Because it all starts from a home. When they were young, you actually inculcated all these values in them. But somehow along the way, especially teenagers now, they might be changing how they perceive the world, or they might start to be more woke sometimes lah. They start to hear different perspective. They start to read certain things online. They might start to form their own beliefs. But do you know what they're going through, what they're thinking, what they're feeling? And then the next thing that we can help them is like, what are the actions that they're taking that's not very helpful? And getting them to realize, right, hey, are you taking the right actions and are you accountable? you actually know what's the outcome of the actions that you're taking? Because if now I'm going to share, right? If we shift towards like them realizing and taking accountability to their own life, their thoughts, their feelings, their actions, and the eventual results, that is the biggest win that you can have as a parent. Because it's no longer you lecturing them or nagging at them, it's them realizing things by themselves and them wanting to take the right action in order to build themselves up better. So back to this cycle, right? The main thing that we have to understand is for parents, where you can step in is really to understand what your teens are thinking and what they might be influenced by. And sometimes, right, we need to create that space to understand them and step into their world. A lot of times, let me ask parents first before I share this. How many of you parents here actually you've been trying to like ask your teen how's their day, what they're going through, are there any challenges, but they'll either give you like one word answer or they hardly talk to you at all. Any parents over here? Yes, Agnes. Okay, thank you, Agnes. Jane as well, yes. Emmy, yes. Joyce, yes. Okay. Later, the second part, I'll share with you how you can reconnect with them. But the important part for parents to know is like, we always have to start with like, what are they thinking? You have to try to understand what they're thinking. The second one is really we have to try to understand also why they're feeling a certain way. Because, okay, I want to say this is controversial, but this is like some people may agree or not agree. And a lot of times, as parents, right, because your child is your child, and you'll feel this sense of responsibility or even authority to like, hey, I'm the adult, I'm the parent in the house. My child is supposed to listen to me. And sometimes you get frustrated when they don't, and you might take out your frustration or anger at them. And some of them might even be quite extreme, right? They'll say like, wow, but like I didn't ask to be born, then you bring me into this world, then now you blame me in everything and all that. So the one statement that I want to share with parents over here, right, is sometimes like your child, like you, they're human beings as well. You might feel a certain way. They might also be feeling a certain way. And if both are frustrated at the same time and you guys engage in that point in time, right, it's just going to be like World War III. You're just going to quarrel and fight even more. And then that negative feeling may continue on. And that's where the separation and that's where the gap will start to widen. So the very simple tip for now, it's really sometimes if you're feeling angry or heated, right, just step away from that moment to cool down yourself as well and to give your child a bit of space. But then it's important to come back to the conversation later to try to amend it and try to take steps forward. Okay, so after you address the feelings, right, of your child, and if they feel safe and they feel supported and they feel seen and even respected by you, right, and they start to feel like, hey, my parents, they at least try to understand my feelings. The biggest win is if your child comes to you and say, Mom, Dad, like I'm stuck in this situation. How can I actually like improve myself? Because it's them asking you for advice. It's no longer you telling them what to do. Because sometimes as teens, they want autonomy, they want independence, they want to act cool or like seem like they have everything figured out. But we all know that as teenagers, once upon a time, we also struggled. We also were trying to figure things out by ourselves. But if you can get to the stage where your child actually asks you, like, Mom, Dad, I need help. What's your advice for me? Can you come in to help me in certain ways? That is where actually your relationship with your child is very healthy because results are a matter of when. When they actually achieve the results that they want, then this whole cycle will start to continue in a very positive way. But again, the same can be said if the whole experience is negative, they will spiral down, sometimes into a black hole that is very hard to pull them out of later. So I'm going to share with you another real case example. So this student over here, right, has a very challenging relationship with their parents lah. And when they start to realize that, hey, ultimately, I want to do things because I know it benefits me and it's going to help my future. Then they started to take more responsibility. They started to take more accountability. But then the one thing I was encouraging the student to do is also to be more reasonable with their parents because this student fights with their parents all the time. But as you can see from their perspective, they also share that, hey, my parents, if they explain things calmly, then I will also try to meet them halfway. So again, parents, sometimes we ourselves, right, as adults, we have to be aware of our own emotions and even the words that we say to them. Because it may just be things that we say in a moment of time, right? But for them, it could be something that they carry for the rest of their life, or they misinterpret what you might say, your intentions, and they carry this like grudge or burden, right, through the rest of their life. And this is like when they are, in their words, their Gen Z, Gen Alpha lingo, if they're locked in, right, then they start to like, hey, taking action is my own responsibility. I need to get people to hold me accountable. And if they do come to you and like, mom, dad, this is my plan. This is what I want to work towards. These are the steps I'm going to take. I need you to hold me accountable. That is the win that you're working towards, okay, as parents, because you want them, right, to start to take action by themselves. So you don't need to like nag at them all the time, okay? Because this cycle, ultimately, what it forms is it forms their identity. And if your child right now is unmotivated, if your child is lacking confidence, if your child is disrespectful, or some of the things that you said at the start, right? What you need to do is you need to identify at which stage does it need to be fixed. Because if they don't understand this, then for you as parent, you need to help them to realize, hey, is it their thoughts? Is it the way they feel? Is it the actions that they're taking that is influencing the results that they're getting? And sometimes as teenagers, they don't realize this. As an adult, you need to step in to interrupt or to break this pattern so that they don't continue this vicious cycle. Okay, so next part over here, I'm going to share. Can I ask at this point in time for parents over here, has this been useful so far? Understanding this, because this is no longer just applicable for teenagers themselves. Actually, us as adults as well, we go through this. And sometimes when adults grow up, right, they don't realize like, hey, our thoughts affects our feelings, affects the actions and results, right? Then we go through the motion sometimes. Okay. Yeah, thanks for typing in the chat, Angeline Priya. As I take a sip of water also, and I move into the second part, right, where I really share with you some of the strategies that you can adopt and use to connect with your child better. I would like to take a pause to ask all of you over here, right, parents in this room, I'm curious to know, what is your parenting style with your child? Are you more like chillax? Are you like the tiger mom? What is your parenting style with your child? Okay, can you take a moment to just share in the chat? Curious to know what's your parenting style. Because again, right? Okay, this one, I might say something that will offend parents, but I think it needs to be said. After dealing with a lot of teenagers and youths and students over the years, and sometimes parents reach out to me and like, hey, my child is a problem. I need help because they're the problem. And after speaking with their child, the biggest thing I realize is their child is perfectly fine. And sometimes it's not the child that's the issue. It's the way the parent is parenting the child that's causing them to be a certain way. So, okay, Amy, thank you for being honest. Used to be a tiger mom. Lena says, maybe helpful, becoming naggy. Read me note says, generally chill to the bad result surface. A bit regimental. Okay, I'm curious to know. I'm going to take a bet, right? I think most of the people, the 80 people in this room, right? Most of you would be mothers, right? Can you type mom or dad, depending on whether you're mom or dad? Mom, Sophia, Chan. I would say maybe 70-80% are the mothers. Okay, yeah, see you see a spam of okay, thank you. Jean, you type that, but your name is okay, Ronald that, thank you. Okay, so always right. Okay, the biggest thing that most parents have to know is both mom and dad have to be on the same team, because sometimes you might play good cop, bad cop, right? But if both parents contradict themselves, then the child is very smart. Your child is very smart. They will know who to go to for what. And sometimes even when grandparents are in the picture, right? For those parents with Gen Alpha kids, your child's still in primary school. If your grandparents sort of contradict the way you parent your child, then as parents, sometimes you need to step in to like tell your own parents, like, hey, this is my child, this is the way I want to parent them. Okay, but you and your spouse, your husband or wife, right? You guys need to be on the same team. You cannot contradict each other. Otherwise, your child will, one, be confused, like, what's the value system at home? What's the way my parents want to raise me, or enforcing at home? And two, is then your child will pick, right, who they go to for what. And then like you might be the good person, but like the other partner, your partner is like the bad parent and all that. So you have to be on the same team. Okay. So thanks for sharing. And then second part right now, I'm going to share more insights, especially from the teen's point of view. And then as parents, right, what are some of the strategies, some of the ways you can build a stronger connection and relationship with your child? Okay. So wait, people are still coming into this room. Um, this was something I wrote like 3 years back, right? And I was sharing online that the generation of kids these days are very, very different. It's like you can have a primary school kid, right? Even P2 these days, they are like cursing and swearing like nobody's business. And it's not just the Gen Alpha lingo that they're using, they're literally cursing and swearing, right? Like in very explicit ways. And some of them in P6 or even Sec 1, they're no longer just studying biology like sexual reproduction. They're actually experimenting in sexual ways that are very concerning for parents in this room. And for some of them, by the time they go into like Sec 4, when they take their O levels, their N levels, right? They feel very stressed, they feel very overwhelmed, they feel like very crippled by the pressure and expectations, and they let it define who they are. And some of them, by the time they go to college, right, or even JC Poly, they start to experiment in ways that could be irreversible or detrimental to their future. So these are all the realities that they're facing. But I would like you to hear from the youths themselves, what they are actually going through or what they themselves find concerning. Okay, I'm going to run through some of the top 10 concerns parents have for their child that perhaps forms that disconnection, right? You just pick the one that you feel very strongly about or your peers feel strongly about, and let's explore your take on this. So we talked about the overusage of devices, screen time. We talked about social media. There is the internet safety. There is the concern of depression, suicide, bullying, stress and anxiety, unhealthy diet, cost of raising a child, school violence, certain trends like vaping and all that. So which one do you think is a legitimate concern amongst your Gen Zs that parents like, whether spill some tea, like what goes on in schools these days that parents don't know but actually should be concerned? Okay.
Really man, vaping like
It's so common now, you know.
like it's common but like it's really a problem.
I personally have tried a lot of things once. When my mom knows all about it, I want her to know that I'm doing a lot of stupid and she knows, but she knows that I won't do it again because she's been telling me since young, try once, don't do again. It's always good to explore, but don't go down the wrong route. But a lot of people is that because their relationship with their parents is like really so bad to the point where I can't say not savable, but they just don't want to try to save it lah. They go down that route lah of like every day skip school, drink every day, smoke this, smoke that, vape everything. I won't say a phase, but I don't know how to get them out of it. Like, you know what I mean? It's like only their parents can do it, but they don't even like want to listen to their parents. So what to do?
Actually, that's the most challenging thing, right? Because sometimes when parents reach out to me, their child is at that stage. There's such a disconnection between child and parent, right? No, and they've really gone wayward, but like sometimes I honestly would say that's beyond helping already because its damage is done. And everything that you mentioned, the foundation has to be built when you're much younger. Because if you don't build a foundation as they grow older, the gap is going to grow even wider.
It's very hard to find your way back.
So actually you see and hear from the youths themselves, right? They do know, they do feel that, hey, like, do they want to listen? Do they want to actually build that relationship with their parents? Or at like 14, 15, 16 years of their life, right? They want to create their own identity. And they feel that the past few years of my life, I don't really like feel connected with my parents. They don't really understand me. The gap will start to widen. And the second thing that I want to share is at the start, I asked like, hey, how's your relationship with your child? And some of you say, yes, they still communicate with you, which is great. Some of you said sometimes they open up, sometimes they don't open up, which is still okay. And I'm not going to share with you some of the steps that you can strengthen that relationship. But for some parents, if your answer is no, and I was saying like, it depends on how severe the situation is or your relationship with your child is. Because the truth is, sometimes it could come to a stage, right, where it's so severe that an intervention is needed because it's no longer, oh, we sit down for counseling or whatever. It's like something needs to drastically happen in order for things to hopefully be better. And I'm not going to share with you like one of the worst case scenarios of a very broken parent-child relationship. And I hope nobody in this room is going through that kind of situation now. So as you can see from this text here, I'll just summarize it. This was a mother whose son at that point in time was Sec 3, and common things that some of you expressed, very addicted to the phone, wasn't doing well academically. The mom got frustrated, threw his phone out the house, and one time she took his bag and she threw his bag and phone on the floor and it broke. Took his school bag, threw it out the void deck area. But if you see the last line, how the boy retaliated is the boy took out a penknife and from a distance, right, like gestured trying to slash the mom. So this is a very worst case scenario, I would say, because the relationship is already so broken to a point that, like, hey, a crime could be committed. Or sometimes if your child is going through a lot of pressure and they retreat inwards and they don't expressively like show it or say it, right, then they might even self-harm. They won't hurt others, but they will hurt themselves. Or in the worst case scenario, they'll take the way out of life. So these are kind of situations that are the worst case scenario, but I'm sure most of you here, you're okay with your child. You're perhaps like wondering, how can I continue building on that or strengthening the relationship? So I'm going to share with you a few ways, right? But before I share with you the few ways, it's to understand why and what teens are going through these days. Because again, it goes back to what they're thinking, what they're feeling. But for us as adults to understand why they're thinking a certain way and why they're behaving a certain way. Okay. So some of the top reasons, right, or challenges that your teenagers are facing today, the first three is nothing new. All of us, we were teenagers once as well. We face peer pressure. We went through academic expectations, whether by ourselves or by our parents. We also had certain expectations that we had of ourselves or by society. So this is nothing new. But what's new or what's different about what your teenager are going through is the constant exposure to social media. And what happens is a lot of comparison happens, and that's where their self-esteem takes a big hit because they might start to feel like my friends are doing better in school. That's one. They might start to feel like, hey, my friends, they go overseas for holidays, like why my family cannot afford. My friends always buy the new things, they always have so much fun. Why my parents don't allow? And they'll start to spiral down into this like self-pity sometimes. Why is my life like this? So that constant exposure, right, to social media, and it constantly stimulates them all the time, it's unhealthy to them. And as teenagers, they are still developing. Sometimes their lack of self-control is not there. And that's why, as parents, it's very important for you, as much as they don't like it, you need to slowly build that habit in them, slowly build that self-control in them. Because if they become addicted to their device, and can I ask any parent over here, your concern is your child is very addicted to their phones, right? And then you've tried to implement screen time, you've even gone drastic measures of confiscating their phone, and then your child becomes like a new monster. Any one of you, you've gone through that phase already? Like they literally will show violent reactions or vulgar like retaliation. Okay, some of you say yes already. So that's the whole situation, right? Because they don't have that sense of self-control. And then if you like take it away from them and send them to cold turkey, they're going to have this violent reaction. So that is quite like extreme intervention needed already. Okay. But what we need to understand is, why are they actually needing a phone, or why are they sometimes mentally stressed or overwhelmed? Because as parent, we might say like, oh, the simple solution is just take away their phones. But I'm going to share with you like later why phones are their lifeline. But for now, on a very basic human level, right, what is it that is lacking in the youth's lives these days that makes them crave for all this attention online, and why their devices are really important to them? So some of you might be familiar with Maslow hierarchy of needs, but I'm going to break this down in a very simple way. The basic needs of any human being, adults, teenagers, is our basic needs in terms of food, water, shelter, as well as feeling safe and secure. This is usually things that are already provided for by parents to your teenagers. And this is where I'll say something controversial because I've experienced it a lot of times. If your child doesn't even appreciate the basic things that you're providing for them, food, shelter, and all these basic needs, right? Sometimes they take it for granted. They might become self-entitled. It's no longer just they're ungrateful, they become self-entitled, or they might even say like, my parents are not giving me enough. And sometimes they might grow to become more selfish. However, if your child understands that, hey, regardless of my family's background, right, I know that my parents are doing their best to provide the basic needs for me, and they're grateful for that, they understand that, then actually your child is already forming a very strong foundation. Most teenagers these days, they don't actually realize this. They take things for granted sometimes. Okay, then the second one, this is where they feel a sense of safety and security, because if they go home every day and they can already anticipate, oh, my parents are going to be scolding me, my parents are going to be quarreling all the time, like my siblings are fighting all the time, right? And if they lack this sense of like love and safety at home, and they want to avoid it because they know like, oh, my environment at home is not ideal, then their basic needs are not met. How they would then try to meet these basic needs is on the psychological level. And one of the reasons that is concerning about why teens are chasing all these like dopamines and validation is because when they go, not just in the classroom, but when they go online, they form connections with people who will validate them. They play games that will give them a sense of achievement, accomplishment. Because if they do their homework, right, no one is going to say like, oh, good job for completing your homework. But if they play a game, they clear a level, the game rewards them. The game says like, good job, fantastic, whatever, and they start to level up. And they feel good about themselves. But in real life, when they try to talk to their friends, nobody wants to listen to them. When they go online, like someone will be connecting with them. That's why this psychological needs is really a double-edged sword. If their basic foundation is not built strong, they will chase all these external validation to fulfill their psychological needs. And the dangerous part for teenagers is if they seek it in all the wrong places. So only for students, right, who basic needs are strong, are met, they understand their own self-worth, their self-esteem, then they can talk about like, hey, what is their goal? What is their potential? What is the thing that they want to fulfill? Because most students and even adults, we struggle in this space. We struggle in like not meeting our psychological needs. We think we're not good enough. We're always comparing with others. I want to give you a very quick insight, right? One of the, and this is how the social dynamics of students are changing in the classroom. There was this one boy I met in the class before, and he was like, on the surface, he seemed very introverted, very quiet. His friends call him a nerd lah, and he's just like socially very awkward. But then, as much as his classmates call him a nerd, and in normal situations, you might think that he will get bullied in class and all that, right? However, he seems to be respected by his peers instead of being bullied. And can any parent, if you know or you would like to guess, why is that the case? So he's a student that seems like very quiet, very nerdy, the kind that will easily be picked on and bullied, right? But apparently his classmates really respect him. And not because he's like top student in class. Anyone wants to guess? Patience? No, no, nothing to do with his characteristics. Yes, okay, Joshua and Adeline said it correctly. Because in his game that all his classmates play as well, he's one of the top ranked player. So because he has that top rank in his game, right, in real life, it translates as well. He feels this sense of acceptance, prestige, and his classmates actually respect him a different way. So sometimes for your teenagers, right, when like they're on TikTok, they have followers and all that, they feel confident. They feel like this sense of like validation. Then in their game, they feel this sense of accomplishment, this sense of a prestige. But if they don't understand, these are all like external dopamines or external validation, right? And it's nothing to do with their internal self-worth, then it becomes a problem. Okay, so moving on. Because of all these things that they may know or not realize yet, this affects their behavior. Like some of you shared your concerns for your child, right? The reason why they might feel withdrawn, have a low self-esteem, might become people pleaser is because they lack that in their life. They lack that at home. They chase it online. They chase it anywhere that will give them all these things that they crave. So sometimes the behavior is not really like your child is bad. It's like, what is the root of the problem that is causing all these behaviors, causing all these like shifts in your child's characteristics? They may have been very bubbly. They may have been once upon a time someone that opens up to you a lot. Then if you actually notice, or if you don't notice, they might start to change. Sometimes it could be something that happened in their life, or even online. Okay, so the question is, if your child is going through this transition, if you're facing these challenges with your child, like what are some of the steps you can start to do or change yourself as an adult parent to connect with them better? For this part, I'm going to share 3 tips that you can start to perhaps think about and perhaps even change the ways you approach your communication with your child. Okay, so the first one is really for those parents who say like you're a tiger mom, right? Or even, actually, what do they call the dads who are tiger dads or dragon dads? So if moms are called tiger moms, what are dads who are controlling called? Okay, while you're typing in the chat, right? So, quick backstory, my mom is Korean, and when I was a teenager, I used to call my mom like Kim Jong-il. Kim Jong-il was the former North Korean dictator. Because my mom, she literally controls, she command and controls, right? Everything and anything in the house. You cannot like go against her. Even my dad has no say when my mom says certain things. So when I was a primary school kid, obviously I feared my mom. So I just listened to my mom. But when I went into secondary school, I started to form opinions and goals of my own, right? I started to rebel against my mom. So for parents over here, this is to give you a glimpse of like, hey, command and control is good to build the foundation when they are younger. Because when your kids are still in primary school, you need to parent them, you need to form the values and the foundation in them. But as they become teenagers, you also need to form and change your approach. Because for most teenagers, right, these are things that they constantly say. Whenever I ask them, like, hey, what's up with your relationship with your mom? And they'll say, my dad always try to like fix me. They don't understand me at all. My mom doesn't listen to me at all, just next at me all the time. Then my parents they always lecture me one. I never get a word in. They just talk all the time. They don't really want to listen to me. So parents, if you're guilty of these things, right, sometimes it's to really like be aware that, hey, maybe you could be the one that needs to adapt rather than your child needs to be fixed. And I'll show you this meme that is quite accurate amongst Asian parents. And it shows that Caucasian parents are generally very nurturing or very expressive in their encouragement and expressive in their love. However, when it comes to Asian parents, it's very tough love. Like, I tell you for your own good, but actually secretly I love you. But I won't say it because like paise or whatever lah. Can I ask any of you parents you're guilty of this? Are you like gentle parenting or are you like the tough love parent? Tough love, okay. Yeah, sometimes you need to find a balance lah. Like some parents are too soft all the time, right? Then your child grows up, they step all over you. Some parents are too strict all the time, and you don't give a bit of leeway, right? Then your child will start to shut you out. So there needs to be a balance. And how can we achieve this balance? Is we ourselves, we need to be aware and we need to start changing certain things. So the first one, command and control, right, is really that instead of like controlling as your child becomes a teenager now in the teenage phase, they want a lot of independence, they want a lot of autonomy. So it's no longer just about controlling them, but it's about forming the connection with them. So that's the very first important thing. Like we need to establish the connection instead of just controlling all the time. And if they want autonomy, then the next thing is to have a communication with them and to get them to compromise because you want certain things as parents. You want to establish certain rules, you want them to obey certain things, but they also seek like certain autonomy or independence. Then it's to have the communication and to strike a compromise. You want certain things, I want certain things, let's communicate and let's meet in the middle. So once that compromise is met, right, then you hold them accountable. So I'll give you an example. If let's say they're very addicted to their device and they say like, oh, I haven't finished my game. Then you say, okay, let's have a compromise. How long more do you need? And you get them to tell you specifically a time, oh, I need 10 more minutes to complete this game. Then you say, okay, 10 more minutes, that's your word. So if 10 minutes comes back, 10 minutes is over, and then you come back to your child, right? And if they don't honor their word, then you have the right, the authority to say like, hey, you said 10 minutes, you didn't hold up your end of the bargain, then you can implement whatever compromise or whatever consequence that you both agreed to. So that was one of the tip, okay? So to have the communication with your child. And secondly, when they go through certain challenging situations, right? A lot of times you might face a certain emotion as well. You might be sad, you might be angry with your child. But one thing that we have to start to do is to encourage their strengths. instead of focusing on the setbacks, instead of sometimes even give them silent treatment, right? We need to really encourage their strengths because Maslow hierarchy of needs, if their psychological needs are not met, if they go through a struggling situation, parents don't talk to them, parents nag at them, they go online, they will find someone who understands them. And sometimes they might chase all these like external validation, right? Because someone is willing to give to them. Okay, so for parents, what you can do is to really encourage their strengths and really ask them like, hey, would you like my advice? Because one very simple tip is if you like to share advice to your child, right? A very simple way to build that connection with them is to even ask them, like, hey, would you like my take on this? Would you like my advice on this? Instead of just like bombarding them with whatever you want to say. And if they do achieve something great, instead of saying like, mom and dad are proud of you, you can also encourage them to be proud of themselves. And one important thing about this is because when you say mom and dad are proud of you, it forms an external validation. They do things to make you proud, which is good. But what you want them to do, right, is to focus on like, hey, you did well, you should be proud of yourself. And they start to feel good about themselves as well. They start to do things because they want to and because they know they can. Okay. So these are a few things, right, that are very important because if we don't realize these things or we don't like change the way we talk to our child sometimes, then the gap is only going to grow wider. Second one is really the self-management part. And just now I was sharing some of the things, right? Why your child is really addicted to their devices. And you can see some of the reasons over here. When they play their games, they get dopamine hits. When they go on social media, TikTok, Instagram, or whatever, right? They get connections or validations from their friends. And for teenagers who want this sense of control, really, parents, I would say the one thing you have to establish with your child is not just boundaries, it's really compromise as well. Because if they want screen time, like, okay, you're willing to meet them halfway, but what is something that they want? What is something they're willing to work towards to meet you halfway? Compromise is one thing. Second thing is the consequences that you need to hold them accountable to. Because most times teenagers will tell you things to get things their way. Then when they get it or don't get it, they will just like ignore whatever deal they make with you. But they need to compromise. They need to be clear about it. They need to know what the consequences are, and you need to hold them accountable to it. So whether or not they like it, right, you need to establish this. Okay. I'm not going to share with you, right, besides some of the compromise and some of the consequences, because this quote over here is if they want freedom and autonomy, they need to understand it comes with consequences because like every choice that they make, right, will have a positive or negative outcome. But if they crave for independence, autonomy, then says, okay, I'm going to meet you halfway. I'm going to give you all these things that you perhaps want, but you need to meet me halfway as well. And if you do this correctly, I'll show you a few outcomes and then I'll share with you some of the things that you can start to get your teenager to focus better on and start to change as well. So I'll show you two of the students. I'll summarize it. This student, her main challenge was like her social battery, right? She's always, I would say, in the category of people pleaser. She always says yes to people. She always wants to be part of like social situations to not FOMO, lah, fear of missing out. And then when she started to realize like, it drains her. It really is not very beneficial for her sometimes. Like she started to self-realize that, right? Then she decided like, hey, the shift I need to make, right, is I need to learn to say no more. And she says, instead of feeling like FOMO and obligated to people, I need to start to stand up for myself and say no. So again, parents, like sometimes you know your child is influenced by their friends, but if you just tell them like, hey, don't spend so much time with your friends, come home, study and whatever, they'll just brush you off. But if they self-realize that, hey, actually, my friends like draining me, is it beneficial for my time? If they self-reflect, they're self-aware, they will start to take autonomy by themselves. That's where you communicate with them. How can I support you? How do you want me to come in? And you hold them accountable. Okay. Second one, this student also realized that like the weakness that they have to work on is being more organized, the executive functioning and all that, right? So you have to get them to think. And sometimes if you cannot communicate with them, right, get them to write. Okay, give them some time. Say like, okay, I want you to write like this term two right now. What is something that you want to work towards? Because your term one grades, you know how it is. How do you want to improve? tell me the steps you want to take. And then when they share these things with you, then you say, have a conversation with them. Okay, how do you want me to support you? Okay, how can we come up with new rules or boundaries or compromises that we can make sure we hold you accountable to these things so we can support you better? Okay, so a few things that you can immediately get them to think about and start to change is things that they can control instead of things that they cannot control. A lot of times teenagers, they focus on things that they cannot control. They waste a lot of times on things that are irrelevant or doesn't have any beneficial effect to their lives at all. But three very simple things that immediately they can focus on, that you can influence and they can start to control better, are these three things, TEA. And TEA, the first one, wait, let me take a sip of water. I think I'm losing my voice. Okay, the first one is really how they control their time. Because can I ask parents in this chat just to interact with you a bit, right? How many of you, your child, like they sleep really late or sleep really little every night? Like now it's 9:20, right? They sleep at like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. kind. Mixed. Thank you, Margaret. Angie says, yeah. Priya says 11:30, not this stage yet. Okay, so for teenagers, right, sometimes they procrastinate, right? They procrastinate, they come back from school after CCA, they have dinner, they want to chill, they play their phone. By the time they start homework and all that, it's like 10 p.m. By the time they complete their homework, it might be midnight or 1 a.m. Then they wake up the next day at 6 a.m. So they sleep late and the quality of sleep is not there. Then their focus in school is not there as well. And they don't realize, right, how important time is. But very simply, if they actually realize, right, that every single day, 24 hours is just like 24 slots that they have. And if you get them to map out, I guarantee you students, most students, especially those who don't like rules and structure, right? They hate timetables. They will say, I do when I feel like doing. I go with the flow. But if your child struggles with this, you need to implement this because if they just go with the flow, they never get things done. Okay, if they just go based on emotions, they will never feel in the right moment to do it. Okay, so you really need to get them to understand like, hey, 24 hours in a day, you need to prioritize what's important first, put that in your schedule, and like the blocks of free time, right? Then you can do whatever you want. But also for your child's own well-being, you need to enforce like certain sleeping habits in them. So if they're not sleeping enough, you need to fix that because it has really a ripple effect. If they don't sleep enough, they go to school the next morning, they will probably sleep in class and they're not focused, they're not paying attention at all. So the very quick tip, right, is what they can control is, hey, 24 hours block in a day and get them to map out like they have school, they have CCA, maybe they have tuition, and what are the free blocks that they have, right, to schedule in all the things that are important first. This is especially important if your child does not structure things, they simply go with the flow. You need to get them to start like creating a system in their life. Because once they have system, it's going to be uncomfortable sometimes, but then it will become a routine, then it will become a habit, which will eventually lead to them being part of their lifestyle. But the first part is always painful. They need to start implementing this. And you need to start like perhaps hand holding them a bit for this part, even though they're teenagers. Okay. Second one is energy. And I love this picture that I'm about to show you, right? Because this applies to us as adults as well. And I always use this example as we as human beings, every single day, we are like a battery that as we sleep, we charge like 100%, right? But through the day, we're constantly like giving energy to things, to people. And sometimes it's not returned or people don't refuel us, people don't recharge us. Maybe your own kids, for example, you give them so much time, love, energy, right? Then they just drain you. They don't refuel you, they don't recharge you at all. But teenagers, they need to realize the same thing in their lives. Just like one of my students who says that, hey, she's a people pleaser. She's always saying like yes to people, yes to things all the time, but it only leaves her drained and burnt out. And when she self-realized that, right, she said like, hey, I need to start to create boundaries. I need to start to do things, focus on things that actually recharges me. So if your child is someone that says yes to everything and is drained all the time, right? You need to start to get them to reflect and be aware like, what are the things that drains them? what are the things that recharges them, and have this conversation with them, because sometimes they don't know themselves. So you need to start to like get them to realize and start to fix the things that are draining them. Okay, so this is E. And finally, the last one is attention. A lot of students struggle with this. I think just now at the start, a lot of you shared that your child has very short attention span, right? Can I ask in the chat, any of you parents here, you struggle with this? And you know, one thing I've realized, right, speaking to parents over the last 2 webinars, a lot of parents say, oh, my child has ADHD, whether it's diagnosed or not, right? They have very short attention span. I'm going to say something very controversial. ADHD, it's yes, it's becoming more common these days, right? But please, I really hope that as parents, sometimes I know it might give your child certain advantages during exams and whatnot, but some students, they literally take it as an official excuse to just conveniently say, oh, I have ADHD, and as a like get out of jail free card lah. Okay, so if your child is like that, right, it's to really like, hey, yes, you may have certain conditions, yes, you might need medication for it, right? But don't use that as an excuse for the rest of your life to conveniently get out of situations, to just say like, I cannot focus, I have ADHD. How can you work on certain things, right, to help you better despite the condition that you have? Okay, so attention, speaking of which, I want to share with you an image, and I'll tell you a bit about how our brain works and why you need to start to get your child to understand, do not multitask. Multitasking is one of the biggest like reasons why they cannot focus at all. Okay, so if you look at this picture without any context at all, you're gonna see like a lot of flashes all over the screen, right? But actually, if you narrow your focus to each individual dot, you're going to see all these circles are a solid black. But when you zoom out and you look at everything, right, you start to like, hey, everything is flashing all over the place. And this is almost like a representation of our brain, because our brain is not wired to multitask. And every time your child like multitask, when they do their HBL, they're on your personal learning device, they have multiple tabs. Can you guys see the picture? No, I can't see the picture. Is it sharing? Can see on the screen? Okay, thank you. Okay, so I think if you're on your phone, you need to swipe loud to the right one. So anyway, I was sharing like, if your child multitasks all the time, right, what happens in your brain is it's like constantly switching between like, what do I need to focus on? And if they do that, right, first of all, it lowers their efficiency. They're not able to focus, it lowers their efficiency. Secondly, it increases their stress. Because, for example, if they are in their room right now on your personal learning device, they're supposed to be doing their homework, but they have like multiple tabs open. And then when you go into the room, you try to check on them, like 1 second is split or they switch screens, right? And then you're constantly on edge all the time. And they constantly stress is like, oh, I need to be aware of my parents. I need to like be focused on my schoolwork. I need to switch to my group chat with my friends and all that. Then your focus is all over the place, and it only increases their stress level. It only increases the mistakes that they make, and it doesn't help in their efficiency or their effectiveness at all. Okay. So the very simple solution for this is to get them to eliminate distractions. If their phone is their biggest culprit, right, then they need to take certain things, remove the device physically, or even switch to airplane mode and all these things. They might give you excuses that I need my internet, I need my device. Then start to have certain blockers, like 25 minutes, 30 minutes, okay, you focus without any distractions. And they need to build their mental stamina over time. Because just like for the dads over here, we go IPPT, we run 2.4. Maybe now we're not in the best physical state, right? We need to slowly build our stamina. So just like your child's mental stamina, if they cannot focus, start small first. Start with like 15 minutes, then stretch to 30 minutes, then maybe stretch to 45 minutes, and then 1 hour. Okay, you need to start small and build your child's mental stamina over time. Okay, so last one for the second part is really the confidence and confidence and motivation. And this is something that I'm very, very passionate about, because a lot of parents always say my child lacks confidence, my child lacks motivation. And confidence really comes through action. Because if your child right now, if you say my child is someone that's not very confident, then if I ask, when was the last time your child did something new or something uncomfortable for the first time? And if you don't know, or if you're someone, a parent that is like very protective, you don't want your child to be hurt, you don't want your child to fail, you don't want your child to go through setbacks, you always protect them from all these things, that could sometimes be the reason why they're not very confident, because they don't take risk, they don't fail, they don't learn from their mistakes, they always stay in their safe bubble. And for motivation, motivation is always a feeling. It comes and goes all the time. But what your child needs to do instead is to build consistency and to build the momentum. Because these two things hand in hand, right, will actually help in their development and help in their growth. They will become more confident, they will become more motivated. But how this happens is because if your child right now, whatever stage they are in life, they might be 14, 15, 16 years old, they might be very confident, not very confident, but we're all always in our own comfort zone. And for any child, any teenager, everything outside of their comfort zone is scary because they're afraid people will judge them. They're afraid they might fail. They might not have the competence yet in order to do certain things. So they don't want to be embarrassed. But if they're not encouraged out of their comfort zone, they will never grow. They will always stay stuck in their comfort zone. Versus someone who dares to take risks, who learns from their failure, they will start to grow. And the scary thing that I would like to say to all parents over here, if your child is now a teenager, and if they constantly stay stuck in your comfort zone, 5 years later, they could be in university. 10 years later, they could be an adult working. They will stay the same. Maybe life will throw them certain situations that they will grow into or grow out of. But if they constantly stay in the comfort zone, they will always stay the same. They will stay stagnant. And sometimes they become adult that is like they will blame their situation um, to like the government, the world, or everything like that. Okay. But if they start to realize like, hey, I'm in control of my life, I need to step out of my comfort zone, that's where they can start to build their confidence. So I want to share with you again, like some of my students who are very similar to your teenagers, right? They may have lacked the confidence before, but when they realize, hey, I'm accountable to myself, my life, and I need to take the action to step out of my comfort zone in order to grow, some of the things that happen to them is I'll focus on this one student, okay? Because this case study was a student who was doing well academically, but was a very quiet girl and was always very she was one of the better students. Academics was always one of the top and all that, but she was always losing a lot of opportunities. And the reason why is she always felt that others are better than her. And she lacked the confidence, she lacked the self-esteem, even though she had the grades, and a lot of opportunities just went by her. But when she started to like, hey, you know what? Why do I keep missing out opportunities? Is this going to be the rest of my life? I get good grades, but I lose out. Then what's the deal? And she started to like, you know what? I want to take control of my life and my decisions. And she did that. When she went for one of the scholarship interviews, by merit, by grades, she was already qualified. But when it came to the interview, and she knew the right things to say and how to express her strengths and all that, right, confidently, she was awarded a scholarship. So this could be your child as well. Sometimes they are capable, but if their confidence is holding back and they don't do anything about it, like opportunities will slip them by. But if they start to take control, take action, step out of their comfort zone, and they achieve the things that they want, right, that's where their confidence will grow. Okay. So this next part, this is really on the part where we talk about their motivation. And a lot of times, when they are starting something new, right, their competency level is not really there. Okay, we all know this when we start something. And this is where everything that I shared tonight, right, in terms of managing their time and all that, they need boundaries, they need guidance, they need certain steps that we need to guide them through in order for them to implement. Because when it's new, they don't know what to do. When it's new, it's uncomfortable. When it's new, they need a bit of instructions. But when they move up, their stamina gets better, their focus gets better, their competency and confidence gets better, then that's where we can start to let go a bit. Because the moment they start to gain confidence, gain the skill set, gain the competency, right, then they will naturally gain momentum. So for parents who ask, how can I motivate my child? What you need to do is you need to start them off by creating certain compromises. I wouldn't say it's establish the rules. I would say compromise with your child. Like, hey, do you want to be better? Do you want to grow? Term one, whatever results you got, let's discuss like how we can support you, what you can do in order to become better. Okay. So I think Oh no, it's almost like 9:30. Okay, I know I'm supposed to end at 9:30. Is it okay if we like overrun a little bit, maybe like 5-10 minutes? I know some of you might need to log off it. I'm almost done already. I'm almost done. Okay, thank you, Emmy. Thank you, Violet, Priya. Has this been useful? Has this been helpful so far, this webinar? Thank you for typing in the chat also, Violet, Sophia, DM, Sharon. Well, I talk until I no voice, and I'm like, thank you, Emmy, Lena, Jane. Okay, so I think I'm almost at the final part already. And yeah, I wanted to share this, right? That if at the start you said that my child lacks confidence and the motivation and competency, it's really they have to do it through actions, through intentional practice. And going back right to the start, right, is really understanding what they're thinking first, why they're feeling before this stage. This stage is about taking action. But before you can actually get them to take action, as a parent, you need to understand what they're thinking, what they're feeling, address that first, validate their feelings first, and then like pace their feelings and say, okay, let's talk about what actions we can take together, how I can support you. Because when they get the results right, then they will start to feel more confident. Then they will start to build the momentum. Okay. So work backwards. It's always why I wrote the post previously was because in Singapore, sometimes we just focus on the grades. I don't care about the process, I don't care about the journey, I don't care about what you think or feel. I just care about the results. But for your child, work backwards, address their thoughts and feelings first, and then guide them through their actions, and then the results will naturally come. Okay, so also one thing, right? I wanted to really share with parent on one of this ending note is also like your child, right? As they grow up, they don't need you to be the perfect parent all the time. I think later I'll share about my own mother. My own mother, as much as I call her a tyrant and tiger mom, right? She was always trying her best to be like the perfect parent in her own ways. And I always like rebelled and hated her for it. But what your child needs actually is not the perfect parent. What your child sometimes they need is a parent to be present. So if you are sometimes too busy and all that, it's to really find time, find ways, find space to really connect with your child. If they don't really talk to you, it's going to be quite awkward sometimes. Don't force it. Just create that space. And then over time, right, naturally they will start to like notice, hey, my parents are putting in effort. Maybe I should start to reciprocate towards their feelings as well. Okay. So that is the three things that I wanted to share tonight. And the last one, really, I'll try to like cover it as fast as I can in the next 5 minutes. Is really how you can do this differently as well. Maverick Movement, we do things very differently for my students over here, but I'm going to share with you what exactly we do and how you can also change certain things, right, with your own child so that they can really fulfill their potential. So before I share this this final part, I'm going to share with you a very quick story of my own mother and why I decided to do this for the next generation. My mom, like I shared, she is Korean. This is my mom over here in Hanbok. This is me as a Korean child. And I grew up in like Korean expectations where in Singapore, you get AL1, you get A1 is pretty good, right? My mom's standard is like you have to be top in class, you have to be the top in the school. In South Korean, expectation is like you have to get through the top three universities, otherwise you're a failure in society. So my mom always made sure my siblings and I we lived up to that expectations, her expectations. But it all fell apart for her when I got my PSLE results. She wanted me to go to ACSI, and instead, I went to like some neighborhood secondary school, Queensway Secondary School. And my mom literally said to me, like, hey, your future like hopeless like that. Like you cannot amount to anything. My own mom, man, she gave up on me. And my teachers, because I was quite notorious like in secondary school, they also said like, hey, you're very useless. And they sort of predicted my future that it's not going to be ideal and all that. So as a child of my mother and as a teenager going through secondary school, all these reinforcement of like, hey, you're useless, you're hopeless, your future is going to amount to nothing, like started to form my identity, which is why I talked about this at the start. Like the more external factors feeds your child's thoughts and beliefs, and if they are not aware or if they don't do anything to break that cycle, then it becomes part of their identity. It forms their future. However, if they realize like, hey, external factors or things I cannot control doesn't shape me, doesn't affect me, I can control what I want to change, then like their whole trajectory could be different. Because at some point, I started to think like, hey, my mom might think that way about me, my teachers might think that way about me, but do I really think that way about myself? And it was only when I changed the way I thought about myself and the way I felt about myself, and then as I grew up through my 20s and my adult life, right, I started to achieve everything that like my own teachers and my own mom said I'll never amount to. So this is why I'm very passionate about youths realizing that, hey, they can change their own lives if they start to realize certain things about themselves and they start to change certain elements in their lives. But at the same time, I would like to ask parents very quickly, right? Because we are overrunning already. Can I ask, what is your definition of success for your child? I know the quote is here already, lah, but I would like to ask parents over here. As a parent, what is your definition of success for your child? Feeling grateful? Because sometimes certain parents, like my mom, right, her definition of success is you top in school and you get the like doctor, lawyer kind of job. Yeah, Agnes says confidence. Lina says be happy and lead a meaningful life. Okay, so I think for most parents, right, ultimately you want your child to be well, you want your child to be happy, you want your child to be able to live a good life and perhaps like contribute to the world around them as well. Okay, so if they're able to do that and if they're able to improve themselves, actually they're also successful, and we should encourage that rather than like, oh, they didn't get the grades they want, they're failure, they're not successful at all. So little actions and little wins, right, towards a better self is actually their journey towards success as well. Yeah, purposeful life. Thank you, Crystal. So we talked about like the belief cycle, but for Maverick's framework, we also realize there are different elements because the world is changing very rapidly, and there are different things that are just as important because schools they focus on academics and results, which is good and is important for a child's future, but there are also external factors that can be done more by parents, by certain external parties, right? So the first one is really the exposure that they get. Because if a child is only exposed to a certain perspective of life or a certain social circle or certain realities, then their worldview or their self perception of everything, right, is just like this. Because, for example, when I shared that at home, the value system is built by the parents and built by the family, if they if it's strong and it's right, that's great. But sometimes if it's not very ideal and they carry on this belief system, right, and they're not exposed to other circumstances or other situations or other pathways in life, then they're like, oh, my life is just like that, I'm born into this situation. But if they're exposed to certain things and exposed to the right things, then they also start to build their EQ because they realize that, hey, my emotional quotient is something that I can control. My emotional quotient is something that I can learn from other people as well to regulate better. Next thing, besides the exposure, is really, wait, I think my clicker died. The experiences that they go through. Because when we talked about comfort zone just now, in order to build their confidence, they have to go through adversity. If you're a parent that shelters them, protects them all the time, you need to let your child fail. You need to let your child go through scary situations, uncomfortable situations. That builds their resilience, that builds their critical thinking, that builds their ability to overcome adversity. Don't like shelter them all the time. And then when they face a serious situation, they don't know how to deal with it. So as much as you can, as best as you can, get them to experience whatever the world has to offer, good, bad, ugly, like everything. Okay. And the third one is really their environment. And this is something that I feel is really important. The reason why some parents they ballot, right? They volunteer, they ballot for their child's primary school spot and all that is because as much as MOE says all schools are a good school, which is true to a certain extent, the environment that your child is placed into actually shapes them a lot. And besides the environment that it plays into, some parents think further. They think of like the social capital. The reason why they want to place their child in certain schools, right, is because of the network that is going to benefit their child in the future. So actually, all these things are things that you can do and you can influence to shape your child, what they're exposed to. And you can actually be more intentional about this because the truth is, they're already exposed to a lot of things online, on social media. But do you know what they're exposed to? Second thing is experiences. Are you making decisions for them all the time? Or are you like pushing them out of their comfort zone in order to build their experiences? And the third one is really the environment that they are in. Do you know their friends? Do you know who they're hanging out with online or in real life? Because all these things, if you tailor it, you curate it better, it will ultimately form not just the identity of your child, but it also forms the character of your child. Okay, so on this note, now it's 9:35, right? Yeah, I'm pretty much done with these three things, and I just wanted to leave parents over here on this ending quote, right? Because I'm sure you joined this webinar tonight for certain reasons, whether you want to understand your child better, what they're going through, whether you want to know some of the steps, some of the strategies that you can adopt to connect with your child better, or whether you can like go one step further uh, than what schools are doing, right, to shape your child to achieve their potential. So I hope tonight's session is beneficial for you. And the final part in the next few minutes is for parents, if you actually want to explore like certain opportunities for your child, because a lot of times we get messages from parents are like, hey, do you run any workshops? Are there any classes and all that? I'm going to share that in the next 5-10 minutes. But on this note, right, for parents who join this webinar just for this sharing, thank you for joining us. If you'd like to be updated on any of the other webinars or sessions where we have, right, you can follow us on our Instagram, okay, Maverick Youths. Okay, so for parents who are curious to know or interested to know some of the upcoming workshops that we have, I'm not going to share with you. If you stay on for a while, there is good news and bad news. Um, First of all, let me ask, parents, any parents here? I know some of you have DM me and all that. Are you interested to know some of the workshops we have coming up under Maverick Movement? Okay, yes. Okay, I have good news and bad news, unfortunately. Okay, the bad news is that this is the final webinar that we're doing. Okay, I ran two other webinars, and the first two webinars, a lot of parents have really like chope their spots for their child. So later when I show, right, there's actually very limited spots left. The good news is if parents over here, you are still interested in it, then we might open up a second class like at a later date. Okay, so there's still opportunities, and I'm not going to share with you what is the opportunity. Okay. So for students under me, right, under Maverick Movement, they are known as the Maverick Youths. And ultimately, what we aim to do for students under Maverick Movement, right, is whatever challenges or struggles that parents face or your child might be going through, is to get them to be self-aware, to get them to take accountability of their own lives, to take certain steps that are beneficial for them, to grow into the person that they want to be, they can be, and they are proud of. Ultimately, like you said, definition of success for your child is to be happy, to be capable, to be independent. We want to work with parents to achieve that for your child. But the world is changing very fast and very rapidly. And just a few weeks ago, I actually came back from China, right? And you see this in the news, but I saw it in real life that literally you have kids who are like 6 years old or younger. They're learning about AI. They are so woke and they're so educated, right? I was talking to one of my friend's child who was a 8-year-old girl, and like her maturity and her depth of her intellect and depth, right, was like, wow, it's almost talking to a Sec 1 student in Singapore. That's the difference in terms of the maturity and intellect. And if a Chinese student who is 8-year-old in China is already communicating and thinking like a Sec 1 student, and in Singapore, local students, international students, you take a 14-year-old kid, a local student may still be like growing through their teenage phase, but an international student may already be thinking, behaving, doing things like an 18-year-old. So you can see like the world is changing so fast, but our students in the local system, like are they progressing? Are they growing fast enough for the changing world? That's why while schools focus on academics and subjects, right? Personally, in Maverick Movement, we believe that, hey, there are other factors that actually influences the success rate or even the opportunities of growth for the child. Because there are things like their awareness, their adaptability, their leadership ability, their ability to communicate, to think critically, to solve situations. These are things that are very important because the world is shifting towards not just academics anymore, but are they individuals who have the skills in order to thrive. So if schools are doing what they can, Maverick Movement, we want to fill the gaps, right? To support the child and parents to fill all these different stats as well. Okay. So for the thing I'm now going to share, right, is every single year in June, we actually run a 4 days masterclass. And I know some parents over here, you've been waiting for it since last year, right? I'm not going to share the details of it because every year we only take in 40 students in this class. It's going to be a 4 days experience. And through the masterclass itself, right, they're going to learn certain things that will level them up in their personal life and also prepare them for the future. So I'm going to share with you a little video first, and then I'll share the details of this masterclass.
I cannot magically improve, so I'm just taking tiny steps. I'm like the type very lazy, very inactive, no motivation. So I kind of like stepped up, like went out of my comfort zone and tried to do things like maybe like 90% effort, better than like 45%.
The biggest thing that Matt has helped me with is with my time management and how I should approach things. Because before Matt, I would try my hardest in school for the first 2 terms and I would burn out. Same with other things, I would put in a lot of effort at the start and then I'll burn out towards the end and then the quality would die off. But thanks to Matt, I think he's one helped me with my time management. So I've really been able to plan my time out better so I don't feel tired throughout the whole week. He's helped me understand what works and what doesn't for me so I can better like pace myself. And it shows because this year I've been able to maintain a steady rhythm, studying my CCA, everything. I'm not seeing myself burning out as much as I usually would.
Before the masterclass, I was definitely a lot introverted. Like I was really scared to talk to people, and if there were any opportunities, right, I was always like doubting myself, like should I go for this? What if I fail? And things like that. But I feel like after the masterclass, it allowed me to gain a lot more confidence. So I think that the most immediate way in which I saw my growth after the masterclass was actually on the second last day. It was when I already started seeing results. So on that night, right, I happened to have a call for a project for school. And during the project, I realized that I was able to share more of my opinions and ideas. Like usually before the masterclass, I would be very quiet during calls. Like I'm always a person who's muted and then like off camera. But like during that night, I realized that I wasn't afraid to share my opinions anymore. And when I saw how my group mates like reacted and they were like, oh yeah, that's a good idea, then it also allowed me to be like, wow, I should talk more. And everyone, like people will appreciate your input. So just don't be scared and go for it.
I think under Matt, I've managed to question a lot of things. I've learned to like try to find that deeper understanding to different things. Like he knows how to see things from many different perspectives. On a bigger scale or like personally, whether it like directly looking at my point of view or from his point of view or from my parents, like he is able to understand all the different sides of things. And whether it comes to my personal problems or it could be even issues that may be happening in the world, whenever I talk to him about it, it's interesting and insightful to hear what he says, because many a times, even though I consider different perspectives, but I realize that there's other sides of things, and when he adds onto that input, I think it's really cool because you get to understand things from more sides of the story.
I thought the masterclass was going to be some rich man talking about how to live my life, but I was wrong because Matt really showed us like what is the world like with all the challenges he had, especially the one at day 3 where he taught us like what is it like to be like an adult living in the world, because it's not always going to be so easy, you know, because you're going to face challenges, you're going to face people who like won't like you, people who won't like engage with you or anything. So I feel that masterclass has really taught me like how the real world works and how do I really socialize with people. Because last time when I used to make friends, right, I would just say hi, what's your name, what do you do? But now I really like have a conversation with them to understand who they are. Basically, I can know what they do, and if I have a shared passion with them, right, I can even talk to them even more and even network with them. Yeah.
He has seen how I've been before masterclass and he has seen how I've been now. I would say like the major changes like who I am right now is really thanks to Matt, because some of these values from the masterclass was ingrained into me because of him. Thanks to the masterclass, thanks to Matt, all these values I've learned to apply them into my daily life. And Matt is a person that if you really have anything that you need his help with, he will very willingly help you. So sometimes when I encounter things that I need someone's advice on, I will consult Matt, and then he'll give me like really valuable advice that is not just applicable for like that thing that I consulted him on, but also like further on into my life. Yeah.
So this will be the 8th time we're running this masterclass, right? And one of the common questions I get from all the parents from the previous webinar is this only for students in the top schools? The answer is no, okay? Even though you saw like the students in this video and all that, right? It's just these students were more willing to share their experiences and all that. Because my whole backstory was, I came from a neighborhood school, but I still made it in life. And I always like am rooting for the underdogs or even students, right, who actually want to improve themselves. And we're setting up this masterclass for them to have that breakthrough, okay? So the main thing about the 4 days masterclass is what's the minimum age, right? They have to be in secondary school, like 13 to 17 years old. And through the 4 days, they're going to go through 9 different modules. And it's not lecture-based, where they don't just sit in class, listen to a lecture for the whole day. It's very experiential learning. They're going to be put through real-world situations. They're going to actually be exposed to certain like high-value mentors. And some of these mentors that we bring in, right, to really guide the youths are people who have achieved success or even run their own companies at like a multi-million-dollar level. And to even engage some of these individuals, you have to pay them like 5 figures and all that. But what we do at Maverick is we bring these people to the youths in the masterclass for them to learn from the best. Because you talk about exposure. In order to be the best, you need to learn from the best. And the next thing is we curate an environment where 40 students who want to learn, who want to grow better, they all put through this experience, these 4 days, through all these 9 modules with these mentors and these learnings, and you will see a transformation in your child. I know you may have a lot of questions, right? I will answer all your questions at the end for those who wants to stay on to ask questions. But now let me share with you the details of the masterclass, okay? So if you do want to consider this masterclass for your child, can I just ask quickly in the chat first, just to see who might be interested? Because we only have like, okay, I'll show you the details later. But any parent here, you're interested in this 4 days masterclass for your child? Okay, Lena, Karen, Sharon, Priya, Faith, Janet, Jennifer. Okay, let me go through the details, because if you sign up through this webinar, there are going to be a lot more bonuses for you. That's why we didn't encourage you to sign up direct, because if you sign up direct, you just pay the full fee. There won't be any like incentives, okay? So the first thing is, if you do sign up through this webinar, you will be signing up for the 4 days masterclass, but there are also certain bonuses that we're going to throw in for your child and you as well. Actually, at this point, right, if you are considering this, and if your spouse is someone you need to discuss with, right, you might want to get them to listen to this as well. Because some parents, they're like, oh, I need to discuss with my wife, my husband, and all that, but I won't be speaking to you after this webinar unless you are on board this program. Okay, so the first bonus is, besides the 4 days masterclass, you will also be qualified, or you'll be invited to our 2 days financial literacy program. So for the financial literacy program, it's a paid program, but under this webinar special, it will be thrown in for you as a bonus, and your child will be invited to this session. Besides that, sometime in November, we're going to have a private closed door session, right, where we'll invite certain successful CEOs or individuals to really get the youths to pick the minds, learn the best strategies, be influenced in the right ways to build their life better. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to shortcut and accelerate a youth's journey to not make certain mistakes that people who've been there, done that have learned from it, and to really share all these things with the youths. For this, we're even considering inviting parents to be part of the session as well, so you get to benefit as well. So the next one is after this webinar, right, for parents who are wanting to sign up your child for the masterclass, I'll have 2 Zoom calls personally with you. I'll speak to you one-on-one. One will happen before the masterclass, and the second will happen after the masterclass to share with you some of the steps that you can take specific to your child in order to support them better, okay? And the next one is really for your teen itself. I'm going to have a one-on-one with them. And through the one-to-one is to really get them to be self-aware, to not just go through the 4 days and then everything goes back to status quo, right? Is to learn what they've learned in the 4 days and then to plan the next steps forward so they can continue building the momentum in order for them to continue growing as well. Okay. And finally, the last one is at the end of this year, Maverick Movement, we're going to be creating a new awards, a national level awards, right? And we're going to have several categories, several companies that are going to come in for all these things. And if your child is ready, if your child is nominated or qualified for it, they will be in these different categories. And they could even be awarded like up to $1,000 if they win these different categories. So all this information will be sent to parents who express their interest in this masterclass. So if you actually itemize all these things, right, this entire masterclass and all the bonuses, the price for all these things are valued at like $6,000, but don't worry, this is not the price of the masterclass or the webinar special. For parents who are interested to sign up your child through this Maverick experience with all these things included in the webinar, it's only $2,004. Okay, so I know for some parents over here, you're like, okay, I want to sign up for my child. There are certain considerations, right? Because the final slide I'm going to show you is we only have 7 spots left. And there are certain students that are okay for this, and there are certain students that we may not take in to our masterclass. So for parents, if you feel your child is good, you want to push them to be better, that's okay for your child. Parents, if your child, you feel that they are stuck at some point, you want to help them better, that's okay. As long as your child is open to the experience, we can help them, okay? Because who might not be suitable for if your child is super resistant. It's natural for them to be reluctant or resistant, okay? But if they are like super against it, they're going to be violent and all that, they're not open to it, the very bare minimum, it is not suitable for them at all, okay? So let me show you first before I drop the link in the chat. For parents who are interested, all you need to do is to go to this link. You don't have to make payment or anything. You just have to go to this link, which I'll drop in a while's time. You just go to contact us. And then under the register today, right? You just go fill in, express your interest. And then what's going to happen is I will get in touch with you over the coming days. And then if you want to confirm your child's spot, then you are qualified for all these things. I'll be setting up a personal call with you, okay? So let me drop this in the chat, the link. Okay. You may ask your questions in a while, but just don't write in the chat first. I'm going to drop the link in the chat. Oh, shoot. Okay, hold on. And then please go to this link to express your interest, and then I will start answering some of your questions if you have any, okay? Okay, the link is in the chat. And while you guys are going to that, I also address some of the questions that parents have commonly asked. So the masterclass itself will happen on the 9 to 12 June. I know some parents here, you have like holiday plans and all that, right? So if you cannot make it, yeah, for Fanny, if you cannot make it, don't worry. On the form itself, there is a alternative December date that we might potentially run a class in December. So you can opt for the December class. Because we only have 7 spots left, for parents also, if you really want to like go for the June class and you can make it, right? Then just indicate in the form. If you have holiday plans, then you can choose the December run, okay? Okay, so at this point also, any questions that you have with regards to the masterclass, you may type in the chat. I can like address your concerns right now. Any workshops for preteens? Yes, we do tweens to teens bootcamp, right, for P6 students at the end of the year. So post PSLE, we will do a 2 days workshop for primary 6 students or P5 students. But that will happen at the end of the year. One of the biggest concerns that I would like to address is for most parents, what you might face is you want to sign up your child, but your child might be very resistant, reluctant. Again, I'll share that it's very normal, okay? For 80% of the students, they will always like maybe forced to go for the masterclass by their parents, right? What I would like to say is change only happens if things are done differently. So if you feel that this could be transformational and beneficial for your child, what I will need you to do on your part is really I always say to parents, as long as you get them through the doors on the first day, I will take it from there. and I will journey with you to support your child through their 4 days and to achieve the growth that you seek and they want for themselves lah. But you will face resistance and even like reluctance lah. Location is here, Lifelong Learning Institute. So the specific details I will be sending to parents who sign up for confirm their spots for their child. For the pre-team workshop in December, do we have to attend through? No, for that one, you can just direct sign up. We will update you through an email. You can direct sign up. Because for the masterclass itself, we only run it for 40 students. For the tweens to teens, we will run webinars as well, but you can just direct sign up if you want to. Yeah, I'll personally be contacting you like over the next few days. So as long as you fill up the form, I'll personally contact you. Okay, while you're typing your questions or not, I know some of you are logging off. So I just want to say thank you for joining this session tonight. I hope it's beneficial for you. If you are considering or going to send your child for the masterclass, I'll see you again then. I'll be like contacting you over the next few days, and I'll be speaking with you personally together with your husband about your child. Okay. Yeah, if you have any question, thank you, Janet. Thank you, Elsie. If you have any question, I'll still stay for the next 10 minutes. Thank you, Belle. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Redmi Note DM. Thank you. Thank you, Fanny. Thank you, Sophia. Thanks, Emmy. Thanks, SP. Oh, I'm really losing my voice now. I need to go and hydrate. Thank you, SP. Thank you, Shirley. Is the workshop suitable for 18 years old? So the age range is 13 to 18 or 17. Most of the students are between the ages 13 to 15 at the moment. We have a few Sec 4s. For the 18 and above, I'll run a different workshop that is, I haven't created the workshop yet. I'll be creating, because some of my students have grown up to the age already, so I'll be creating a new workshop for them. Yeah, thanks, Sharon. Thanks, Shirley. Thanks, Joyce. Thank you. Yes, if you have any questions, you can continue to ask. Thanks, Catherine. Thank you, Joyce. Thanks, Joshua and Adeline. Oh, I don't know what. I think I'm falling sick, man. When will you be conducting the workshop for 18 years old? TBC. So you just follow our Instagram page, or we'll send out like emails lah. Thank you, Lena. Thank you, Bert. Okay, if there are no further questions, I will probably be closing this Zoom in the next like 2 minutes. My child is 18. Do you have the work? No, we don't have any for 18 years old at the moment. Is it recommended? So if Shirley, your question for siblings to attend together, yes, they can attend together, but they'll be grouped separately. So they will not be together in the same group, because we don't want their own sibling to influence or affect their own learning experience through the 4 days. Okay, any other questions in the chat in the next 2 minutes? Is it a bonus held in June? Oh no, so the bonus, right, for the financial literacy workshop will happen. There'll be 2 dates. One will be in July, one will be in November. So for those who are confirmed, you'll be sent the details and you can get to select like which run is preferable for your child lah. Okay, I hope that answers your question, Violet. Shirley, you need to indicate your interest by tonight because there are only 7 spots left. I'll be contacting parents who indicate their interest over the next few days. And once parents confirm, I'll be setting up a personal call with you. Thanks, Geraldine. Resistant to join. So that's the thing, right? A lot of parents say, can you speak to my child one-to-one? But I'm not able to do that unless like you confirm. What I can very confidently say is if your child goes for the class, you will see a change in their attitude at the very least. But what I need the parents to do first is to play your parent card and influence and a compromise, right, with your child. Because the thing I would say is if your child is very resistant and you feel it's beneficial and needed for them, then you might have to take the parenting role to make the decision for them. Because if they take the autonomy right now and say, I don't want to go, but you feel that they need it, right? Then like I shared tonight, like that growth may take a while, might be a few years later, which they may grow into naturally. But if you want to like sort of intervene and break the pattern now, right, then I need you to sort of help to play your part also lah. Okay, Jerlyn, Bert, my kid is 17. Yes, there's another poly kid. I think there are one poly kid and two JC kids, 17 years old. So Bert, there will be students who are 17 years old as well. Currently, there's one poly kid and two other JC kids. Actually, for the two-person slots, right, you just like write both names and ages of your child lah on the form. Is there anyone or hotel we can call? I would personally be contacting you tomorrow or the next few days, ET. How do you register for this workshop on this upcoming June? SP, I think similarly, if your child is J2, right, like you fill the form and then I will personally be reaching out to you guys over the next few days. Then I will ask more about the situation of your child lah. I would like to get the opportunity to pursue. Yes, Margaret. Well, actually, right, I didn't say this, but I can share with you now. The June class, actually for the 13-year-old slots, is like full already because we have like a capacity for each age group, right, to fill the 40 spots. Actually, all the 13-year-old spots are full already. So there are two options, Margaret. One is you can still indicate in the form. I can still see whether we can reserve a spot or open up a spot for your son for the June one, if you can make it, you want to make it. Or two, the alternative is you can send your son for the December run. Jerlyn says, sorry, I was late. I forgot. Well, I won't be able to join. Yes. For even if you are interested in the December one, please indicate because Benjamin also you are entitled to all the bonuses, right? Even if you sign up for the December class. Okay. So like what Benjamin asked, the financial literacy workshop, yes, this will happen in July or November. This private mastermind will happen in November. This awards night will happen sometime late November or December. Okay, so I think thank you, Margaret. Thank you, Benjamin. Thank you, Geraldine. Those of you who are still here, I'm going to be ending the Zoom. Okay, thank you guys for this evening. If you indicated in the form, I'll speak to you personally soon over the next few days. Okay, otherwise, good night. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Recording.